Hello architecture students, this is your architecture teacher Mr. Green, and I will be going over part 3 of your typical wall section. So as we saw going up, we have now completed everything from our foundation, our sill plate, our rim joist, our floor joist, our bottom plate, our 2x6 going up for our outside wall, and our double top plate 2x6. We went ahead and we added in our drywalling on the inside and the top of the roof, or not the top of the roof, but the top of the ceiling. And then we have, of course, our plating or sheathing down here for our floor joists. So now comes some little bit more of a difficult part. Before I touch on the siding, siding is probably one of the last things I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on a roof. So if we look here, we have a engineered truss. And essentially how these engineered trusses work is to find our correct slope and how far we actually want to build our wall section. We have to figure out where the ridge of our roof is. In this case, you guys haven't drawn out a floor plan, so we don't know where the center of the house is going to be. So we don't really have a ridge. So instead what we're going to do is we're just going to pretend that the house is 20 feet wide. So we're going to say from the outside of the house over is 20 feet, or it's going to be 10 feet because that's where the ridge is going to be, is 20 feet wide. So I just go ahead and I'm going to make sure I have a 10-foot wall, and I'm going to use something called a 6/12 pitch. So that means for every 12 feet I move over, I actually go up 6 feet, or every 12 inches I move over, I go up 6 inches. So you can see it's half. That's what's nice about a 6/12. You can always go with a 7/12 for a little bit higher pitch roof. You can go lower. Wouldn't probably go lower than 4/12. But here I'm going to move up. I moved over 10, so I'm going to go up 5 feet. And then I'm actually going to bring this line all the way to the outside of my wall. So right there I have what you see as the inside. And now I got to start to create my engineered truss. This is the actual slope of my roof. So this is, imagine the outside of the house, and here's the roof moving right up. And now I'm going to start to build my truss. First thing with engineered trusses, they're mostly made out of just 2x4s. So with that in mind, if you look, I have 2x4, 2x4. I actually have another 2x4 right here for my rough fascia. So I'm just going to start to offset lines I need to create that. So I'm going to go offset. We know that a 2x4 is actually 3.5 inches thick. So I offset 3.5 inches. I can do that for my bottom line as they'll connect. I'm going to clean it up right away by trimming. And I have my trusses offset. Now, for homework, we actually had you guys go ahead and find the overhang of your house and try to get the basic dimensions, how far it came out. This overhang here I used, I set up with about an 18-inch overhang. You can go anywhere to 2 feet. Anywhere from about a foot to 2 feet is normal. It kind of depends on what you like. Do you like that large overhang? Do you think it looks nice? Or do you not? So in this case, I go 18. It's kind of nice in between. Then you can determine if you want to go larger than that or smaller than that. So I go an 18-inch overhang from the outside of my wall. So I'm just going to offset 18 inches. Now it makes this nice long line, which we don't really need, because what we're going to do here is we're actually going to extend our 2x4s right out, and then we're going to trim, and we actually have what's starting as our overhang. Now, this is to the actual outside before we put on the rough fascia. So this line right here is actually this line right there. This is actually outside of our 2x4 rough fascia that we have on there. So we are going to now offset, once again, 3.5 inches. This time we're going to move to the inside. And it's going to be not 3.5, it's going to be 1.5. Apologize. So 1.5. Then we're going to go ahead and draw a line right across from the top, right over. And then we're going to make sure, now that I have that line, I know where that line is, I am going to now draw this line down 3.5 inches, and that's going to move right over, and then we can trim. And then we're going to extend, because I want to kind of show you how this is constructed. A lot of these lines will be adding back, but you'll get the idea now. So I just move that, cross it out, so I know that's the end, just like these are 2x6s, these are 2x4s. So my truss actually comes down. It's attached right here between this 2x4 and this 2x4 with a gusset plate. Here's my rough fascia, and I have the majority, pretty much the hard part of my roof done. Now all I need to do is add in the little bit of the detail. So I have my 2x4 engineered truss, I have my rough fascia. Now I can add on, first thing I'll do is I'll actually add on my 7/16 inch roof sheathing. So move right down, offset, I'm going to go 7/16, move that right up. Now my roof sheathing actually runs all the way to the outside of my rough fascia. So this is where I said some of those lines we deleted and we're going to bring them back. Well, here's the case. So I'm going to take this line, I just bring it up just a little bit so I have a place to extend my lines to. So extend there, so there is now my 7/16 inch roof sheathing, that easy. And now that I have that, I'm going to add on just another 1/8 inch, which is going to be pretty much my tar paper and my roof shingles. So I'll go 1/8 inch, and I'm going to draw a little line up, and I'm going to trim that right out. So there's my roof sheathing, there's my tar paper, there's my shingles. I didn't really overlap my shingles, I didn't go into that much detail. Not expecting you to for this first one. You can always, kind of go about what you want and play around with AutoCAD. Now that I have my overhang, I have rough fascia. This is just plywood and shingles sitting here, and it doesn't look very pretty. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to add some finished fascia. It's going to be the face of the board. And then we're going to add some soffit, which is going to go underneath, and it's going to cover this big gap right here. If you looked at your house for your homework, you saw that that gap probably wasn't there. You saw it was probably flat and closed off. Some have fascia that run up because they like that look of the curved overhang. In this case, it's something that's not very prevalent. We don't really do that. So now we're just going to go ahead and offset for our fascia and our soffit. This is usually just aluminum panel. Mostly aluminum panel, and it's around a 16-inch thick. I mean, it's a gauge of metal which isn't really determined by its inch designation, but we're just going to say 1/16 is good enough for us. So that will go right here. And underneath, I'm going to use the fillet command to go ahead and close this corner. There we go. And then I'm going to use the extend to go all the way out. I'm going to go another 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to offset for my inside. And then what I'm going to do is during the winter and the summer, your moisture will get caught up here. Especially during the summer, moisture will get caught up here, and we want to get that moisture out of the ceiling so it doesn't create mold. So what we have on these soffit vents is every so many inches, we actually have little holes on them. They're tiny little holes every so often. So we're going to kind of show that off by just making a 1-inch gap. Now this is not what it really looks like, but instead I went from the midpoint of the line, offset an inch, and now I have a gap. Now they're normally not this big. So this is just to show you to get the idea of what's going on. So I have that portion. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I can actually just close off this. by just extending it up a little bit, extending over my shingle line, closing that off with a trim, and there I now have my closed in overhang. Like I said, so during the summer it will bring air out. During the winter it will actually bring moisture in to keep it from getting so dry up there. So it kind of helps out, kind of helps out the moisture problem, so we don't have mold up there. Something you don't want to do ever in your life is take care of mold up there. So let's see here, about the 10-minute mark. Finally, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and add in some webbing. So every engineered truss can be engineered a little bit different. So this is not normally what's going to happen, but I just drew a line from the midpoint of that line right up. Then I offsetted 3/4 of an inch, or 3.5 inches. I'm sorry, 3.5 inches up. So there's my web. This might be a little bit different. It might be at an angle. And then finally, I'm going to put in just some lines for my insulation. So I'll actually select a spline line underneath draw. I turn off my this is actually pretty difficult with it lagging right now. Alright, that's enough. So there's my insulation, there's my webbing. In reality, probably wouldn't see that line, or it would be just part of the engineered truss. Might go over a little bit. And then finally, let's see here, I have my fascia, soffit, my vent, my roof sheathing, my shingles, my truss upper chord, my truss lower chord, my web, my insulation. There is this part right here, the drip edge. We do not draw that in. It's just a tiny little piece of metal that overhangs underneath the shingles, so then when water runs down, it doesn't get in between the shingles, and the fascia runs up over the fascia. But we don't need to draw that in. It's just a very small, thin piece of metal. So finally, I got a few minutes. I'm going to try to run through and figure out our siding. So basically for our siding, I did it a little bit more detailed this year. I had 8-inch wide siding. From here down here is 8 inches wide, and I've overlapped it about 2 inches or maybe an inch. Let's double check here, like always. So 2 inches there. So what I will do is from right here, pretty much goes all the way down. I am going to draw a line up 8 inches. I went over a thickness of 1 inch for my siding. I'd actually gone smaller than that. Like once again, let's actually double check here. I went over 1 inch actually. Yep. You know what? Actually, what I have to do here is, I apologize, I have to offset for my wall sheathing. My wall sheathing, if we look here on the outside of the wall, it's going to cover in between the studs on the outside. We saw that through the PowerPoint, and that is 3/4 of an inch thick. So I just go ahead, I offset 0.75 inches. That usually runs its course all the way down. And then up here, this will go all the way up, and then I would trim off my fascia right there. And then finally I can go ahead and actually put in my overlap siding. So right here I have my overlap siding. What I'm going to do is it's going to overlap about 2 inches. So I'm going to show you how to do this on one. I only got a few seconds left here. So I offset 2 inches. I go over 1 inch. I'm going to offset now 6 inches to the top. And this line will go here. And this line will go there. and then we are done.